The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual guests. If you're a sensitive snowflake that may get easily offended, then turn this off immediately. If you want to hear the real truth about the gun culture, then stick around. This is the Armed Citizen Podcast. What's going on, Go Squad? Welcome to the Armed Citizen Podcast Live. This is episode 107. We are live as always on YouTube and simulcasting as always over on GunChannels.com. If you are not familiar with GunChannels.com, come on over. The water is warm. It is going on 6 years old. I think maybe next month is a 6-year birthday. Started by G-Webs, and it's created by gunners for gunners to have discussions just like this. Like I said, come on over. There's a link out in the chat. If you haven't checked us out, then come on over to Gun Channels and see what you think. We got a good show tonight. We're going to discuss a little bit about the Second Amendment rally in Washington, D.C. on November 2nd. And then we're going to talk with G-Webs about his newest project, which is the Shooter's Almanac. It's an awesome project. We got a couple weeks to get this thing funded. He's trying to get everything done before the rally, so it kind of ties all in together. But before we get going, let's remind everybody that if you're out there in the chat, please go ahead and say hello. We don't know that you're out there unless you say something. And if you're new to the chat, then welcome. We hope we don't offend you. We hope we don't disappoint you. But if we do, my life's been disappointing for a long time. But go ahead and say hello out there. If you're watching in replay or listening in podcast form, welcome. We hope you enjoy the show. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And for the live chat, if you have any questions, please make sure you tag one of us, and we'll make sure that we get the questions answered. So before we start on the topics, let's introduce our esteemed panel tonight. From Arizona, we got the Godfather himself. What's up, G?
Hey, thanks for the invite.
You got it. And from Texas, the tactical leprechaun himself. What's up, Clove?
Living the dream, baby.
I say that a lot, and people say, man, you're always living the dream. And I said, well, as long as nightmares are still considered dreams, I am definitely living the dream. So,
no, man, it's all good. Life's good. You know, we can find reason to bitch and moan sometimes, but usually they're petty reasons. So life's good, man.
I try to, turn shit into silver as much as I can. And you can find that silver lining in everything if you look hard enough. And I'm definitely the glass is half full kind of a guy. But it's life is good. We all have, like you said, we all have our little wrinkles. We all have our little detours that we have to go through. But it's what it is.
It's all temporary, so stick with it. Right. Follow through, and it ends, and cherish the times when it's awesome, because those also must end.
That's right. And the hardest thing in the world for someone who tries to stay positive is, I don't know where we're going with this. I don't even know why we're on it. But anyways, for me, the hardest thing on a day-to-day basis is to not just for me to stay positive, but I like to be surrounded by positiveness. And when you're surrounded sometimes by people that seem to be negative all the time, man, that's tough sometimes. But you try to maybe exert a little bit of positive to them, and maybe they get it and all that. But Budget out there says life is good. Who do you think you are, Hickok?
No, it's more like life's been good. I'm Joe Walsh, but that's a different story. I think you call me the virus a lot of times, so I think my positivity became viral tonight. That's what happened.
Oh wow! Okay.
Well, I can tie that to the rally.
What's that?
I can tie that to the rally, because the rally is, the concept of the rally is something that is given inspiration and opportunity. So yeah, people that are focused on opportunity, focused on the positive, knowing there's negative, but focused on the positive, optimistic, looking towards what can be done. This is an opportunity to do that in a different way, in a new way, in a free way, right? We're not obligated. We don't have a Hillary, right? We don't have a burden. We're doing it voluntarily as opposed to obligatory. So I think that's what brings a lot of the people that are in your audience and the people that we hang out with together. is an overall positive view of the future and what can be done to solve things in the future. And that's what the rally's all about, right? It's going to gather people like that see the potential and see the optimism.
Yeah. You know, we were, G and I were on John Crump's podcast last night, and we had Budget was on, Obnoxious, and then Sarah.
All the best ones were on there last night.
All the best ones. All the best ones were there for sure. Absolutely. We try to keep the leprechauns out, but I think you were watching Rambo or something, weren't you?
That's what he's.
No, not last night. That was Sunday night. No, last night. I mean, I had my show last night, and then I had some trouble trying to get the replay uploaded, and then I had supper to eat, and then I had to get up early for the thing I covered today, and I just had too much going on. And by the time I seen it, he was using the duck, and by the time I seen it, there was 6 people anyway, and I know how big of a pain it is to move people in and out.
Yeah, that's the problem. He was using the duck because Chamber was being upgraded yesterday again. So. Yeah, when you show up and you're the 7th person on this system, you're out of duck.
Yeah. Now, I will say one thing is if you go through the paid service, the basic or the premium, which is like $25 a month or $20 if you pay it for a year, they did add the ability to stream on multiple platforms at the same time. So you can do Facebook and YouTube at the same time if you wanted to. But is that worth $25? I don't think so. But no, I don't want to bring up, don't want to get on that a whole lot, but we had a great discussion last night about the rally, and Budge's out there saying all the negative comments on Facebook about the rally are driving them nuts. We should reach to the keyboard and shake some of them. And I understand there are some interesting takes on the rally, even from our own quote unquote allies within our community and our culture. Hey, holy shit. Ellis, the Outlaw Hatfield, is out in the chat. Man, I hadn't seen you for months. I hope everything's good, brother. Hope everything's going good at work and all that. And man, good to see you out there. I'm glad to see you, buddy. It's been a while since Ellis has been around. He's been working his tail off, and that's a good thing. But it's nice to see him back a little bit. So welcome back, brother.
Long time no see.
Yeah.
So Budget was saying about apathy, and apathy is a concern. I just want to throw it out there that nothing's killing us. Like, we had apathy at the end of 2013. I think I was saying that last night, right? Like, biggest thing that's ever happened to us with Obama, biggest challenge we've ever faced with Obama giving us 23 executive actions. And remember, that wasn't like out in a big playing field at a football field with a big cheering rally. That was like in a press conference on a Wednesday in the middle of the day during SHOT Show. Like, literally, you know how SHOT Show is? It's in Vegas. It was in Vegas then. They had these big screens in the middle, kind of be above the clock in Springfield, like right in the middle.
Yeah, right in the middle. Yeah, absolutely.
And then everybody just stopped. Everybody knew it was going to happen. Everybody just stopped and kind of watched. So, that happened. Grassroots effort, no individual coordination, nothing. Just everybody said nope and got up and did whatever needed to be done, shouted loud enough that every political strategist was like, whoops, that was the worst move he could have possibly made. There's no way to get out of this. Let's put our tail between our legs and act like it never happened, which is what they did. We had apathy by the end of the year. We literally had so much apathy that we were so concerned that we created Every Second Matters as a frustrated effort to try to keep some of the apathy alive with some of the most dedicated. And look how Every Second Matters is. Dude, except for me and Yankee, I don't want to dismiss anybody who I don't know, but you know what I mean? There's not that many people that jump in, certainly not people that host shows since back then. So if apathy killed, we'd be dead. Apathy is a concern, it's a challenge, but so are chicken pox and I don't know, rust, right? If rust killed us, we'd be dead too, but we can combat it.
Yeah, there was a lot, speaking of apathy and all of that, there was a lot of talk with GRPC. Heard a lot of the old school folks that, been around way, way longer than I, of course, talking about how a lot of the stuff that goes on, that's going on now, a lot of the fights that's going on now is nothing that different than what they had to fight before. It's, kind of a similar thing. So that does play into what G's talking about, I think, with the apathy. I mean, if it killed us, we wouldn't still be here. I mean, I think that that would be, instead of a rise and fall, ebb and flow, which I think things for the most part are, that would be a straight line down.
And then can I address, since I'm just take over the show, I'm going to just address.
Yeah. You know what? Screw it. I'm out of here. You guys have fun. Yeah, go ahead.
Autopilot.
This other concern was that the negative comments and whatever driving them nuts. So my suggestion is, over the years, this applies to any platform or any project, really, anything, even in life. It doesn't have anything to do with internet stuff. If you pay attention to the one or two individuals that want to drag you down, who knows what their motivation is or what, pooped in their cereal that morning. You're not necessarily going to hear from anybody in the middle, and you can either focus on the couple of positive people, which sometimes isn't so great because you feel like they're going to say thanks no matter what you do, right? So don't look for outside whatever. If you got a valid project, just plow through. That's all I'm going to suggest. And then once we've had the rally, once we've all gotten to the rally's going to happen, right? The turnout's going to be what it's going to be, but there's people efforting, and you've seen the momentum of it now. It's going to happen. So I suspect, if anything, just kind of take a little mental snapshot. Nothing more than a Polaroid snapshot. Don't hold on to it. It's not good for anybody to hold on to gripes and grudges about little petty stuff. But take a snapshot, and in a couple of weeks, just of how many people, you look at the crowd and how many people are booing and how many people are yelling praise. And then in a couple of weeks, once it's got some momentum and once it's a done deal and they've already got the speakers and everybody's already counting their chickens before they've hatched, then start seeing how many people are saying negative stuff about it. It's going to be more like, oh, I don't like the way you're doing it. I don't like the way you're getting there. I don't like the message you're saying. But it'll shift from we shouldn't do it at all to whatever. There's just going to be people. What was I watching? I watched something earlier today. Some people are just, it was on this awesome movie Matt told me to watch. Some people are only happy if they're angry. Some people are only happy if they're mad.
That's right. I know people, that's kind of when we were talking about having negativity surrounding. I don't like that. I know people in my life that are not happy unless they're sad or they're angry, they're upset. Something's got to be going wrong with them for them to feel good about themselves. And that's just insecurity. And that's okay. I was talking with someone today for a couple hours at work, and on the phone, we were just kind of having a good conversation, and it came up with NRA, and she was saying that a lot of the comments that she's been hearing about the rally and stuff, seeing is, well, what does it matter now? The NRA is done, and no one's going to take us serious anymore. And we were discussing that, and here's my take on this, and I think this is a beautiful opportunity for our community and our culture to take ownership of our own rights. We talked about it last night on John's thing, but we have as a country and as a community have gotten so used to electing our representatives, but giving them full reign of, we've elected you, now go represent me, or I've given you my $25, now you guys represent me to the gun lobby and all of that. And we have given away our ownership of our rights. So what I say is, we've already seen the precursor to next year's, at least on the gun control side of the political stuff, we've already seen some things about these politicians are out there saying, look, we have taken down the NRA, and they're taking credit for it, knowing that the NRA imploded on itself, but whatever. They're saying the NRA is weak. Now is a time. Now is a time. And I think that could be a good thing. And now go with me on this. Don't nobody yell at the screen right now, but understand what I'm trying to say is if we sit there and allow them to think that we are a weak community now because the NRA is seemingly weak, well, it is weak, but just because the NRA is weak, they think that the community is weak. We have an absolute opportunity to take back our rights ourselves as individuals at the grassroots level and bombard them at the polling booths and the next 12 months of the election cycle of saying, just because the NRA is weak, don't ever turn your back on us because we are stronger than people think. But we actually have to act that way. We actually have to come together. Like I said, take ownership of our own rights back at the individual level, spread that message of freedom in America, the Bill of Rights, a Constitution, and say, just because the NRA is weak, I hope you think that we're all just going to stand by and do nothing because the NRA is weak right now. No. We're going to take it back at the local level, the state level, and at the federal level, and we're going to own your asses when you think that we're weak. So I think there is a great opportunity for us to do something about that.
And think of the NRA, what the message is going to be to the NRA when they're over there, blah, 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 and we're over here having a rally that they have never been able to achieve. How many people go to NRA's meeting? 30,000, 50,000?
Probably something like that.
Yeah, I never heard a but yeah, I would say, yeah, sure. I would say that anywhere in there.
Hold on, let me put it this way: 66,000 people at SHOT Show, including everybody there, the workers and the people. Or no, I think that's just the people in the hallways. So 60,000 at SHOT Show. It's not bigger than SHOT Show.
No. I would say 30 or 40,000. Yeah.
I'm thinking what, a 2/3, not even 3/4 the size of SHOT, half to 2/3, right?
Yeah,
depends on the I suppose. But if it's about the approximate number, that many less people, then we could potentially have as many people at the rally, or I shouldn't say, could be as potentially as many people show up as a rally as shows up as, to the audience at an NRA show over the span of a few days. So if they can get that many people in a couple hours in DC, that's significant. And like I said, the message that gives to the NRA.
Well, I think that the NRA has, for some of their own doing, but we can talk about apathy again. We as a community have become apathetic because we have always felt like the NRA is there for us. Whether that's blindly going down that road, probably so. But I think for the most part, the majority of the community has relied on the NRA to take care of business for us. But that's what I'm saying is going back to that, this rally is a wonderful thing to be able to do this without the organization's involvement, without them being the behind the curtains and doing all of the media marketing for this. There is a lot of talk right now about this rally, and it's all done by a bunch of individuals doing their part and sharing everybody else's. And that's how this flood could start happening, and is each individual doing their part and understanding that, hey, we may not always agree on every little detail, but we can all agree that we're pro-freedom, we're pro-Second Amendment, we hope. We're gun owners, we're Americans. If we're on the same side, then we might have differences. We might not agree on every little specific thing, but let's do this. And someone's asking, I don't know if it was on the show last night, G, you can remind me, or if it was in a private talk I had, but, talking about the feeling it seems like we are kind of, as a community, maybe getting closer or at least tighter. Am I the only one that feels that, or is that something that everyone kind of feels, that maybe since Indianapolis, since all this NRA stuff, that there have been some inner bickering and all that, but for the most part, it seems like everyone's kind of starting to rally together. Am I the only one?
Yeah, I believe you are.
Well,
I mean,
right.
there may be a little bit of that, but I mean, there's still a lot of people that are kind of retreated to their corners. But that's going to happen. I mean, even
it depends on what you're talking about, Clover. Who are you even talking about? You're talking about YouTube centric over there, or maybe social platform? No, Clover. Being pessimistic about you, because I think I tend to agree with Ghost that it might not be the most we've ever worked together before in our.
No, I'm not saying that.
But certainly, it seems like cooperation is not difficult to obtain. But again, I think if you focus on commenters on platforms, okay, that's a lot. I don't do that. But if you look at interactions between individuals and projects, look at KD's event, look at the third year of AmCon, right? Like, those are efforts that I see as people working together. And I mean, working together isn't, like you say, just doing a cooperative or a video where you're both in it. It's, helping each other's projects and awareness and learning training skill sets and things, right?
Yep.
So I think in that respect, we've got, it's not negative. And we've got this rally to help kind of illuminate it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't see anybody like not going to, I saw one person not go to AmCon because they were kind of butthurt. That was it. Like, I don't see a community where it's like, okay, well, we can't go to the 50, or I keep calling it the 50. We can't go to the DC project because of our gender, because they're discriminatory. But there's a purpose for that. I don't think anybody cares, right? But if you don't count that kind of thing, it's as inclusive as it's ever been, and the potential's there. I mean, there's nobody forcing us to mingle, like an orchestrated thing or anything. But I don't know. I guess I'm just saying, I think if the only division I see is in the individuals who are commenting or whatever I say, like, in the replies to other people's content.
Yeah.
In other words, has there been content that's been put out by individuals to say, here's a reason why we shouldn't work together, or here's a reason why going to the rally is a thing? All I see is comments to actual created content, and the comments say, hey, you're wasting your time, or you're wrong.
Yeah. I'm going to Clover here in a second and let him come back if he wants to. But Seven out there says, I know a lot of us are trying to get folks to go to the rally. So yeah, in a way that makes it feel like we're coming together. And that's really what I'm talking about is I don't think any of us are expecting or honestly wanting everything to be kumbaya all the time. Because when everyone is on the same page and there's no dissenting information going around, there's no other thought processes or avenues, that's when we do extremely become lazy. Having altering opinions within our own group creates discussion, it creates creativity, and so there's always going to need to be something out there. But what I'm trying to understand is I think that we all of us that went to SHOT Show, whether or not we thought it was a great SHOT Show or not, I think everyone would agree that the energy was different this year. Even the businesses said they had the best SHOT Show ever, but there was a lot of energy. And then you move into April, Indianapolis, and everything that happened at Indianapolis, and you start kind of seeing this shift. And okay, now we can all at least agree that whether or not we like it or not, but there's some issues at the NRA. So what are we going to do? And then you start the rally, and then you got the 2020 election cycle starting. Now it started. I think that there is a chance, and I like the energy that I'm seeing within the community. And yes, when I say the community, I'm talking about the people that are actually out there doing stuff. So it might just be the social media people that are out there, but at least there's more of it. And there's not this, don't listen to this guy and don't listen to this girl and to hell with this t-shirt company and this sticker and patch company sucks and all that. At least right now, we all seem to be focused, whether or not people are going to it or not, at least they're focused on getting the word out. And that's promising to me. That's all I would say. It's promising that it looks like maybe we can at least come together for a rally or at least a promotion of a rally. And that might be the stepping stone to something bigger. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Clover, I want to come back to you. You want to finish your thought, what you were saying earlier before?
Well, what I was getting at was, G hit on it, of course, that what I was talking about more than anything it's the not really from the creator space, the blogosphere, that kind of thing, but more from the viewer, reader, whatever standpoint. And I think that a lot of it, if you've got certain people that if they can't be a part of it, if there's work related issues, family, money, whatever, then they're going to crap on it to make themselves feel better that they can't go, because staring there in the barrel of I'm not going to be able to go to this thing is something that it's hard to deal with for somebody that truly sees the value and wants to go. It's literally almost a mental health issue that you have to deal with, right? So people deal with that kind of stuff in different ways, and a lot of people's ways is just to lash out, crap on it, make it seem less valuable, and then so in their mind it's not a big deal. To the point of those that are working together to get the word out. What I see, which is the net positive, if you will, and I've been advocating this, talking about this, we all have for a long time, is the new media. And by new media, I mean those, smaller, in tune, channels, whatever it might be, activist people, whatever, that are, actually gung ho out there and getting stuff done. Rather than some of the big dogs that sit back and seemingly do little. And I don't even put them a lot of times in the category of media, right? And I think it shows what new generation, the new wave of the new media, if you will, whatever. Kind of like G-Webs talks about 2013 and, everybody, kind of coming together, whether, it's intentional or just a bunch of individuals, that grassroots effort of people coming together. I think that it's sort of indicative of that, maybe in a way that, but it certainly shows the power that we have as a collective of individuals.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that I agree with the collective of individuals, because that goes back to what I was, trying to say is, if we all individually take ownership of us again and not rely on corporations or organizations or, these big entities to do it for us. If we take ownership, then, what's that old adage, if you have this big corporation, it's this big block, but it's easy to puncture. But when you get layer after layer after layer after layer, that's when something becomes impenetrable. And you start taking, like you said, individuals take it back, and you start understanding that each individual is just a brick in the wall. And the more individuals we have, that wall is going to be so much stronger. So I think it's awesome. It's a great opportunity. And G and some people out there are talking about getting, there'll be some people that will draw crowds. And so they're hoping that has big crowds and all of that. And I think that he made a point earlier. I'm going to bring you in back on this, G, but you said that when you get the big audiences to go, they'll make a big deal of it. But when they get the bodies there, another challenge will to be enlightening those who show up. So we talked a little bit about it last night, G, and John asked a great question. I want to bring you in, but I want to bring Clover in first real quick. I'm not going to gizzard you, but I want to ask Clover a question that was asked to us last night on his podcast, because I thought it was a good one. So it doesn't matter whether it's 100 or 100,000 people that show up to this rally, Clover. In your opinion, what do you think will happen, and what would you want to think will happen as a result after the rally's over?
People to be emboldened to go back home and actually be, the lobby in their area. To actually advocate more. I don't ever call for anybody to be an activist, but advocating is very easy. So at the very least, for people to go back and advocate, maybe people derive a little more tact out of it, in the sense that this rally is being organized as grassroots. Nobody really has a name on it. There's not really a banner on it, and understand that it's not about, and I'm speaking from this standpoint more for a lot of maybe the channels and the new media and the bloggers, or the, whoever those people are, that maybe they do primarily reviews, and maybe they, are really into the whole, affiliate marketing and putting out cool videos, and they're not really into the 2A. Maybe this will embolden and inspire them to do the same thing, to work a little more, at least advocacy, into their platforms and formats, and see what can, as they see what can happen, right? As other people inspire people, I guess. People motivate people. And I don't think that you have to have a huge, turnout for that. I don't think you have to have hundreds of thousands of people. Certainly, I don't think you even necessarily have to have tens of thousands of people to create that effect. And the reason is, we're talking about this being a grassroots thing. Now, the talk, real quick, the talk about the large names coming to the event and this, that, and the other. I've seen large names do calls to action, and 20, 30 people show up. 20 or 30 people show up. So I don't know that, because a lot of the larger names and stuff like that, they're they're so inconsistent, and they have such a different audience demographic, and the message they put out sometimes is so different that, I see the value in this being grassroots, and everybody out there listening now in the chats, us on this panel, doing things not only online but also in our local communities and stuff like that to get the word out. That's true grassroots, and not really relying on those big names, because that's iffy. That's a very iffy game, in my opinion.
Yep. Great points. I want to bring G back in, and I know you answered that question last night, but was there anything that you want to add or regurgitate what you said last night about what you hope is the outcome, or what happens on November 3rd of 2019?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the consequences are a ripple, and everybody's going to go there, and it's going to take effort to get there, like I was saying, and then they'll be there and experience it, and hopefully talk to somebody while they're there and get some new ideas, new contacts, and they'll go home invigorated and motivated and inspired, and that will reach out to the people that got them there. They'll have at least the immediate, dinners and thank yous and get-togethers to talk about their adventures, but then all the documentation of that is chance for more stuff in the social media platforms, comments on all that stuff. But to address what Clover's talking about, so I'm no fan of old media or new media. I'm past petitioning the new media is going to win over old media, but I'm not going to also go back to old media and say new media is not worth anything because the first breed of new media didn't know what they're doing. We all have to learn, and we all have to get our sea legs. And right now they haven't been challenged. A bunch of these, when we're talking about YouTube and we're talking about maybe bloggers and radio shows, I just haven't paid enough attention to radio shows and other forums. So I'm going to go to YouTube again. Twitter and Facebook is all the same, really. But the people that got big based on the scarcity or based on the grassroots stuff in 2013 and the resistance to those executive actions, and then the subsequent little spurts that have happened, or even more recently, with just even if you were asleep for all that, or too young, or out of the country, or in service, or something else, right? You were something, you weren't paying attention in 13, but you're still an adult. And then you just got out and you're like, hey, look, the world is, we have a world now where I can get an AR pistol with a folding brace on it. That's pretty cool. And there was some back and forth on that. And now we can shoulder that thing and nobody's going to give us any grief for the most part. Like, that's a pretty cool world to get into guns with. So we got people that are coming in and experience it. And nobody's obligated to, when you get into cars, you're not obligated to worry about drunk drivings or when's a good age to start a child learn how to learn to drive, right? You're allowed to just buy a car and use it to get to work, or buy a car and drive it around, show it off to your friends or whatever you're going to do with it. But those large channels, I guess, large reach, people with large reach, and I'm going to count radio shows because I have very little respect for people with large reach, at least respect for what they've done historically. But the radio shows, I think they've got great intention and motivation and intent, but I just don't know. I haven't studied enough to see. Like, I don't think anyone can say, like, we have the 2A we have today because of talk radio. I mean, that's just not the case, right?
Sure.
Like, even the syndicated radio shows, they don't do very much. They sell stuff mostly. From my experience, every time I listen to them, they're on the old models of old advertising and stuff. So while they have big audience, every once in a while, like even the Gun Rights Policy Conference, if they tell people to go there, it happens every year, and it's been going on for 34 years, and it sounds boring. You're going to tell us about it later, and if I don't go, there's no consequence. And, why would you go, even if the big audience did tell you to go? The big YouTube channels, you'd shoot a bunch of iPhones with a gun and, do something with hot sauce, or I don't know, shoot something in slow motion or whatever they do. And then, nobody's watching that except for a bunch of teenagers and old people. I bet you old people watch that. And then maybe gun shops have it going, so they think they can be hip or something. There's probably people that think by watching Hickok, they're keeping up on social media. There's people all over the place. So if those people who are never talked about, like, they never get any kind of 2A because we literally have been told by that guy, that if you're a large enough channel, you're doing a disservice to the community to talk about these events, these kind of things. You're wrong. You're not supposed to talk about that stuff. You're supposed to tread water or backpedal. Sorry, backpedal. So just the concept that they're bringing it up has got to be worth something. It's got to be an indication of a trend. But think of all the companies that are like, I'm on social media and I pay attention. I watch the guy who shoots in his backyard. He's got all the numbers. I watch that guy, so I know social media. And if that guy says I'm going to DC, or if same thing with Eric. I mean, we make fun of the old guy, but Eric's the same way. I'm going to gripe about something for the 100th time, or I'm going to sell you something, or I'm going to talk about an old gun. Like, whatever it is, entertainment you watch on Eric's channel, again, if he's never talking about that stuff or only does it when Yankees bullying on him, then this is an opportunity for him to go, hey, I'm going. And if he's going, he's spending money and he's wasting the time going. So he's going to say, everybody, hey, I'm going. So now they're aware of it, and they might not go, but they might have a more of appreciation. So I guess a long way of saying they add
validated almost. They almost validated.
Exactly. That was just a long ass way of saying they add a lot of validity to it. So even if they don't go, the consequences of it hopefully resonate because of that. At least they're acknowledging it. And then that's only one aspect. I mean, I'd like to see some other, what I consider more significant actual pillars of our community. Let's just say, let's throw Thunder Ranch, Clint Smith under the bus, right? Wouldn't it be cool if Clint Smith said to go? That would take a whole nother level of people.
What about Masad Ayub? It'll be nice to see him do something.
Exactly. Gun site, to say, hey, let's get a gun site bus going or something. Or gun site people come from all over the country. Show up with your Ravens, that kind of thing. So there's significant stuff that's been around way longer than YouTube's even been thought about that, are icons in the industry, and they're not unapproachable. And who knows, maybe they are talking about it. That's the thing. This is an effort to bring everybody together because, budget's going to go stand next to an author and a radio show host and a television thing, and then not an environment like NRA where they're each trying to worry about what appointment is next and what they got to review, and if they're going to use this company instead of that company and who's paying them more, but they kind of like that gun better, and what a dilemma. I don't know which gun I'm going to get for free first. And then, this is a different kind of scenario. This time, it's just a bunch of people who are kind of showing up to say, okay, I efforted to be here. Now what? You think really anybody's going to listen to those speeches? I don't know. The people that never heard a speech before might, right? The rest of the people are going to stand around BSing with each other, realizing who's there. Hey, that's an interesting sign. What do all these colors mean? Oh, what's gay? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. I want to bring up something that New York Outcast said. He says, well, if a few hundred do and it hits the news and is forgotten by the next sports game, then at that point, what did it do besides a meetup? And let's take it to where maybe only 500 show up. I still think it's a success. Do you have anything you guys want to talk about? What if the worst case scenario happens and only a few hundred show up? Is it still a success? Clover,
well, the level of commitment to make it there, and I realize that's a lot of that's going to have to deal with financial stance, your financial stance in life, as well as proximity. But for the most part, and I think G-Webs has alluded to this, recently, but the vast majority of people that are going to be there are the people that are definitely in the game, right? They're definitely got a level of commitment that the vast majority of gun owners out there just simply do not have. Not to say people that can't make it don't have. There's not some that don't have the same, but the ones that there definitely do. So even if you only have 500, 800, maybe 1,000, several hundred, let's say, whatever, you've still got a situation to where you've got a coalescence of that many hardened, serious, committed people together. And when you get that many people together, as you have pointed out, that are talking with each other and communicating and networking and strategizing and figuring things out, and hey, well, I've got a podcast. Well, I write a blog. Well, let's work on this. We both live in California. Well, hey, what about this, bill that's passed? Well, let's work together on, getting the word out on that and turning out a vote on a proposition or whatever it might be. Right. So that there's still a positive. I mean, the positive, I guess, maybe with Outcast is looking at it from a perspective of, the national nightly news, right? What difference is it going to make, or what difference is it going to make as far as, in the next few days, weeks, months or so, leading up into this election with our federal government, maybe, what difference is it going to make? And, it may not, but G Web spoke to it earlier with that ripple effect. I mean, this is the stone going into the water, right? So you can look for, I think, a whole host of things potentially coming out of these meetups. Never discount what can come out of meetups. There's a reason that all of these industries and societies and other things have conferences. There's a reason for it. Yes, some of it is grandeur, some of it is grandstanding and vacationing and kick back and have a good time, but they're having breakout sessions while they're doing that, and they're having meetings, and they're doing things, and they're mingling, even if it's at the bar. And good ideas and great things do come out of those meetups. So there's still a positive there.
Yeah, 100%. And I love the fact that, like you said, even if it is just a meetup, a lot of future good can come from that meetup. What if there are two people that become the next Smith and Wesson, and they happen to meet at the rally, and they change the gun industry forever because they were both there just to be there, and they start talking next to each other and having, hey man, I saw you yesterday at the hotel. Yeah. What do you do? Well, I do this. Well, I do this. Maybe we get together. And next thing you know, the next Smith and Wesson's out there, or whatever. Meetups are, you hear about chance happenings all the time. So there's never a better chance of meeting good people that you have at least a common alignment with at a rally like this. G, bring you in. Let's say there's only 300 people. What say you?
There can't be only 300 people, so we're not allowed to bet. So if anybody wants to have a pari-mutuel wager off this show, wherever it is legal, I'll bet on 10,000 plus. There's no way it's going to be hundreds of people. That is looking for an excuse to do nothing, looking for an excuse to question motives of other people, looking for an excuse to, I don't look for excuses, so I'm not familiar with that mindset. I don't care how many people are going to be there, but it's going to be more than that. So Washington, D.C., there's just more people in that area that can drive there within an hour than a couple of hundred. It's ridiculous to think only a couple of hundred. So this has also got more attention than anything has ever had on it.
Yeah. And I think that the Washington, D.C. thing does add something to it. We've all had and done and gone through the Capitol rallies at our state and level. But this is a chance to go, for a lot of people, it might be their first chance ever to go to Washington, D.C. And you hear all of this negativity, and I'm not saying there's not, but all this negativity towards gun rights in the D.C. metro area, including Baltimore and all of that. But if we take the opportunity, and if you're a history junkie like I am, I'm a history geek. I love it. I love the Constitution. I love reading all about our founding fathers and what went into, people don't realize what was cut out of the Bill of Rights. If you guys would ever knew and just did a study and figured out what was left out, they said, maybe it's a little too ambitious this early. There was some stuff that was left out of the Bill of Rights. It's unbelievable stuff. And we're talking mid-20s, early 30s for the most part of a society of generation of men that are changing the world forever. So if you go to Washington, D.C., and there was talk about, well, I'm not going to go because I can't carry. Shut the hell up. Just go. I mean, if you can go, and the only reason why you're not is because you may not be able to carry in Washington, D.C., man, get a life. Get a life. That can't be your only reason, but because if you get to D.C. and you see the history and you see the awesome things that are at D.C., NRA Museum is not too far. Go to the Smithsonian. Just go to Mount Vernon and see the home and go to all of the different, Lincoln Monument and the Washington Monument, all of Jefferson, and understand that these men, and I hate to say men, but there were a whole lot of ladies that were involved with this as far as on paper, but these men created who we are and knew that the only way that we had to protect ourselves from becoming a country that they left with a terrible monarch or becoming a dictatorship was to be able to defend ourselves. And yes, self-preservation and self-protection is incredibly important. But for me, the most important part of the Second Amendment is being able to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government. A lot of things can happen when they know that they might not want to do a whole lot of stuff because the people have guns and they're going to be able to fight for it. Arlington, yeah, if you've never been to the Arlington National Cemetery and you can go to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, you go to, for the Marines up there, go to the Iwo Jima Monument. I mean, it is, Washington, D.C. is an awesome place. If you go, go to the rally, but explore. If it's your first time in DC, understand that the history of our country is there. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place. I really love it. I'm sorry to kind of rant about that. I want to kind of ask one more question about last night I thought was an interesting one. And then we'll move on because I know, G, I want to get you in here. You know what? Let's just go to this because we can do this anytime. The next segment of this is, guys, G has got a new project called the Shooter's Almanac. I want to give him some time to talk about it and explain why this is time sensitive, why it's important, but because it does have something to do to tie in with the rally. So G, I'm going to give you the floor and educate us on the Shooter's Almanac.
Right on. Thanks for the chance. It's not so much time sensitive as that it's an almanac. So like the Farmer's Almanac, it kind of deals with the year, so not so much like a calendar, but offers information about the year. So it's something that you'd want to create at the beginning of a year as opposed to mid-year, I guess. So and it's 3 years in the making. So my decision was either to put it off till some less opportune time, I guess, or more opportune time depending on how I want to look at it, or which perspective you're looking at it, or to just try to incorporate it into this rally. So we're talking about the Shooter's Almanac. I've been around doing things online and focusing on firearms at least since 2004. So in that time, going to SHOT Show and NRA and other industry things, machine gun shoots and gun shows for sure. And on road trips, I explore gun shops and museums when I can. And then, of course, being active online and live and social media platforms and just trying to keep my finger on the pulse of our community. My goal has always been to share our community with everyone, to archive. I understand the potential of archiving stuff online. When you look back at like a Ken Burns movie or something, where he looks at history, he'll look at snapshots. Those are somebody took a photograph somewhere, they went and paid for it, or they took a snapshot, or something happened and a photograph survived time. And that's a little glimpse we have into history, and we can learn so much from that. Historians can learn, about every facet of the clothing and the furniture and the styles and the manufacturing, the chemistry, just from the photograph itself. Anyway, I've always found that interesting. And as soon as I discovered the computers and then the internet, it's always been a passion of mine to share the things that I find valuable. And I think firearms and what they represent is one of the most valuable things that sets us apart as a country, but holds us all together as individuals, right? Freedom, individual liberty, that stuff's important. Guns symbolize that. Our Second Amendment secures it. And I've been doing this for a while. And one of the things we've got is difficulty in discovering our 2A history, specifically our Second Amendment struggles and fights, the individuals, organizations, and stuff. There's nothing's really out there to just accumulate all that. So that's what we're doing here. Is we're talking about the Shooter's Almanac. It's an attempt to be the next step in Second Amendment awareness, a way to experience our Second Amendment all year long with either daily, weekly, or monthly inspiration, motivation, and information, right? Technically, it's a 68-page, full-color, pocket-sized book, and it's a reference, much like a Farmer's Almanac, a sports almanac that has records or timetables or histories. So again, the reason I'm building it is I believe that our history is confusing and it's not concise. It's multiple sources and you have to interpret and you have to patch things together. So it's an attempt to bring history into our hands in a more concise way. It's also a way to round up and list all the industry events, because either as a creator or someone who's just curious or interested or wants to participate in an event, it's sometimes frustrating to keep track of all of them and then to plan for them. So that aspect of it is definitely an almanac. Of course, the history and the anniversaries and the military holidays and all that is in there. That part of it's an almanac. Altogether, though, it's designed to motivate and educate about Second Amendment in a new way. So this is 3 years in the making. As I've said, I've been a website guy, and I've been interested in this history, and I've used my websites since 2015 for this specifically as kind of notes. And while those websites are giant and interesting to me, they're not viewed very often. They're not all that interesting, right? It's just a bunch of dry data. So this is an effort to accumulate that, put it into, again, a full color, interactive type of booklet, book, pamphlet, whatever you want to call it, and get it in people's hands. So we're doing it as an Indiegogo campaign. It's a product, so I could have just as easily figured out how much it costs to make them and go find somebody that's rich, sell them on the deal, and then just go try to sell them. But that's not my goal. I'm not trying to go into business of publishing or anything necessarily. It's to get this version of Second Amendment history into people's hands to see if it's a way to facilitate knowledge so that our conversations I don't want to say confrontations, but our arguments and stuff our debates can be stronger, just with more knowledge and awareness. So I'm doing it as a crowdfunding campaign for a couple of reasons. One, so that it gets done, right? Because I needed to get it done before the end of the year. And this is my 31st on Indiegogo. So ever since the 5th or 6th one, I've opened my campaigns up to people who are in the Second Amendment content creation, media, business, whatever we want to call ourselves, so that they can experience what it's like to do a campaign, so that more campaigns that are focused on firearms exist, because they don't disappear when they end. So there's 31 campaigns out there. Every single one of them has to do with firearms in one way or another, and they all exist on that platform, on whatever platform they happen to be on. So I'm doing it as a campaign so that we can raise funds. I know I could just print a book for myself, no problem. I could probably print a few based on, just raising a couple of dollars. But the goal here is to do it as a Kickstarter, get as much awareness out there so that I can practice going on shows like this. And, we just went to AmCon, and one of the goals of AmCon is to get people working together. So let's work together. This is an excuse, a catalyst to get that ball rolling, give us something to talk about, and getting people to know each other. Everybody's stronger when we at least know what our resources are, who our resources are. So and doing it as a campaign is, again, sort of an excuse, a catalyst to do that. And then again, to share, so that I can go on people's shows who maybe I haven't been on before, who aren't friends of mine like you guys, but, people who I've never appeared on, and then let them know about the campaign, of course, but then about how crowdfunding works, or how, the Indiegogo specifically might work, just so that they have some experience, their audiences have some experience. I really believe, this, I'm preaching to the choir for sure on this, but a large audience that appeals to selling people yellow shoes instead of blue shoes, well, that's always a bad idea. Blue shoes are better, but when anything that is trying to make you purchase, then it's appealing to, it's either manipulative or appealing to base instincts. It's just not conducive to having actual work done. So I think that if we can at least let enough people know this concept of crowdfunding, Patreon, the idea of a subscription based, some idea of like weaponizing our wallets, weaponizing our dollars to fund the projects we find interesting. It doesn't have to be that every 2A project is done that way, but since we have sort of, opposition in the platforms, it's an opportunity to let some of these people who I'm going to be on their show talking about the Almanac, I'll be able to talk to them about crowdfunding as an option, talk to their audience about, hey, if they've got a Patreon and they think of it as a hat out on the street, and they're out there like some kind of guy playing a ukulele or something, like that's not what it is. It's more like PBS or NPR. You're paying to have content created that you don't want to have Smith & Wesson pay for. You don't want to have the NRA pay for it, right? You don't want to have them create content that's so boring that the internet pays them for it, because that means that people are paying for Viagra ads, to make it seen, and that's just usually bad content. So anyway, there's an ulterior motive there with the campaign. But the goal is to get Second Amendment history into people's hands. It's about 3 years worth of, well, it's probably about more like 5 years worth of accumulation of data. I've got a list of every event that's going to happen in the year. We've got a timeline from the Second Amendment till pretty much yesterday, as far as when things happen, so that people can kind of put it in perspective and know that, for example, Pink Pistol's been around since 2000, 19 years. So if somebody's going to try to challenge you and say gun owners should be more inclusive, I mean, 19 years with that organization, and obviously there's been people involved in firearms before that, but they've had an organization since 2000. So, that kind of knowledge can allow us to have a better, conversation or debate with someone. Or just if you're creating content like this and you want to know what happened this week, you'll have an almanac there. You can open it up and, have something to chat about. Maybe if you go to the gun shop or the gun show or the range on the weekend, you'll have a little bit to talk about, if it's Browning's birthday or the week that the brand was incorporated, into service. So I keep mentioning it's a crowdfunding thing. It'll end on the 26th. I suspect probably most of the people listening to your audience have already participated if they're going to. But again, I appreciate it. This is our 31st, so we're not new. This isn't our first rodeo, as I say. We don't foresee any issues, like you said, because of the rally, and that kind of was thrown on this whole thing at the last minute. And honestly, I was skeptical about the rally all the way up until a couple of weeks ago. This is running in parallel. The funding for this, when it ends on the 23rd, 26th, won't come in until sometime in November. So I'm going to do my best, assuming it gets funded. This is one of those campaigns where it's either all or nothing. So it's not a type of campaign where incrementally, if I only raise 50% of the goal, everyone will still get charged and I'll just make do with 50%. It's not that type of campaign. It's instead the kind where if it doesn't reach the goal of 357, right, 357, 3,570 or whatever, if it doesn't reach 357, then no one will be charged and the Almanac just won't exist. It's no big deal. But if it gets funded, or if it's about to get funded and it's pretty certain, what I'll do is beg, borrow, steal the money, have it printed ahead of time so that we have it in DC. So if it gets printed, it'll be printed by DC, because this is new for me, but the printer in California says they can do it in like a week. So again, if it's close to ending and it's close to being funded, or if it's already funded even, then I'll definitely have them for people in DC, or ship to people who are in DC. Anyway, thanks for the time. It's shootersalmanac.com. It's on Indiegogo. It's a campaign, but since that's such a complicated thing to have to say as far as the URL, the link to it.
I put the link out there a couple different times in the chat while you were talking.
Thanks. So. But for people listening, just go to shootersalmanac.com. I call it shooters because we are shooters. Murderers are murderers. And I agree with Alan Corwin that they are using words against us. And this is a word that I think it's to our detriment that we let them have shooter. We use shooter ourselves as gun owners way too often to describe murderers who politically decided to pick up a specific piece of property because they know that the media would make them infamous based on that decision. And we're not helping nothing when we do it. So part of this is to let people know I didn't call it a hunter's almanac or a 2A almanac or the Second Amendment almanac. I call it a shooter's almanac. It sounds cooler, I think. Plus, we own shooters, and we're shooters, and it gives me a chance to congratulate Alan Corwin for bringing up that point all the time, that they're killing us with words, and shooters are what we are. And they don't get that word. That's what we do on weekends.
I think it'll be also kind of fun that the next week right after the rally for some of us is going to be Wanamaker Gun Show, Tulsa Arms Gun Show in Tulsa the next week, and to have the copy of the Almanac at Wanamaker in Tulsa, I think would be kind of cool, because that's a whole different crowd that might, even if we just put it on the table for me to look at it, there's no telling what people are going to love about that at the gun show.
I hope so. Wanamaker's in there for sure, of course. It's the biggest gun show. It's awesome. But yeah, that would be neat. I actually, when I first was creating it throughout the years, my ultimate goal will be to have it be like one of those dandy dimes when you go to the convenience store or the gas station and they've got like a car ad or a boat classified or something. Out here in Arizona, we have a lot of boat classifieds. But, those cheap or free classified papers that, are multiple pages thick always, or like even a little dandy dime, they call it out here, newspaper. But make it, though, on newspaper paper with a decent cover so that it's, something people would actually want to pick up. But then offer that, because that kind of stuff can be created for less than $1 a piece if you do it in quantity. One of my original versions of this whole thing was to do it in a in a version that could be given away, so that it had a bunch of data that would be neat to take home and keep, but it would be like advertisement for either the gun shop or the region. Maybe have them at gun shows, have them available at gun shops, have them available at gun shows by the promoters or something, but then talk about the ranges in the area and the events that are going on. So there's a couple of ways I'd like to develop it, but right now it's it's honed down, I guess. It's probably a little bit Second Amendment focused, but it's a $7.62 cover price. It'd be $4 if gun shops want to buy a big stack of them. They can buy them for $4 and then make a couple of bucks on them. There's a place on the back they can leave their name, or if you're a gun show promoter and you want to get a bunch, there's a place you can put your info on there.
Clover, do you have any questions or anything you want to bring up on the Shooter's Almanac? And out there in the live chat, if you have any questions about the Almanac itself, go ahead and ask those questions so we can ask G before we get off here. So, Clover, do you have anything you want to bring up about the Almanac?
Other than saying, get in on it, because it's very freaking cool. And not only get in on it, but just like I tell people, pretty regular about getting local gun shops and stuff like that. You go to your local gun shop. Don't put this on G-Webs to try to reach out to every gun shop in the country. That's what we're here for. And if you're like me, you're in your local gun shops pretty regular anyway. You probably have their phone number on speed dial and that sort of thing. So call them up, make them aware. And because I think it's a very cool concept. Is something certainly that they could give away with the purchase of a new firearm. I mean, they're able to buy in plenty reasonable enough to do that, and they can put their little stamp on the back, and maybe it's a source of income for them to make a few extra bucks too, because G-Webs always talks about people going into those little gun shops, and heck, I mean making a firearm purchase is typically an expensive purchase, but there's a whatever $8 really cool Shooter's Almanac there on the shelf or on the counter. I mean, that's something that a lot of people could just pick up, and so that throws a couple of bucks the way of the gun shops.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So that is definitely a goal. And again, if this was in a different playing field, if the rally wasn't happening, right, and I was just promoting this, I think that's one of the facets of it. One of the reasons I tried to price it the way I did, so that it's got a $7.62 cover price, right? Everybody knows why. And then shops can buy it for either 50 or 100 of them for $4 a piece. So 6 gun shops would fund this. If I got 6 gun shops on board at this point, because we already got like almost $1,000, 6 gun shops would fund it, and then they'd have them. Now, a couple of things. So now we do have the rally. We are in that environment or that playing field with the rally, right? So if you're the type that hasn't, if you're someone like most people that haven't gone in and tried to cold call or sell somebody something, walk into a business and try to sell them something, that could be unnerving or unsettling, certainly uncomfortable and awkward, right? Can definitely tell you it still feels like that when I go do it, even with whatever clout you think I have when I walk into a place. But when you go in and ask for help for someone else, it's a heck of a lot easier, and there's no consequence. They're not saying anything about you. Maybe your presentation or something can affect it, but other than taking everything personally, if you're going in to say, hey, there's a project that I'm aware of, and they're doing a thing where if you buy 50 of them, you get them for $4, just the kind of stuff Clover said, if any of that works. If it gives you an opportunity to get a conversation going, great. There's no obligation, of course, for you to do it. But if you've been looking for an excuse, if you don't have a project that you're working on that you feel is, worthy or interesting enough for a shop to have a conversation with you, maybe this is an excuse. So one of our goals for the rally we were talking about a minute ago is to get as many people there, not again so that you have a feather in your cap or so that you have a patch on that says I went to the rally, or so that you can brag about it, tell your friends or whatever. It's for all those things we talked about, for the inspiration and the motivation and the collaboration. But getting there is going to be tough. And if it was easy, we wouldn't have to worry about this. We'd have universal background checks everywhere. There'd be no NFA, and we'd all be bragging about how cheap our PKM ammo is, and we'd all be worrying about how many machine gun shoots we're going to, right? So since it isn't going to be easy, and it's never going to be easy, this is a challenge. This is a challenge to get people to the rally, right? And that means financially, like Dead Horse would say, if you can offer like a couch on the way there so somebody can stay and not have to rent or buy a hotel for a night, or if you can meet up with somebody and buy them a cup of coffee along the way, hang out in a live chat with them. Pink saved my life. I've saved Clover's life before, just staying in live chats with people while they're doing a long drive, hosting a chat on the tube, on GunTube, so that 3 people in a vehicle can just think about holding the phone and not running the show. There's lots of ways that people can support each other to get there. And this is potentially, the Almanac is potentially a catalyst to get you to go to a shop and start that conversation. Let's say and here's the thing, I don't want you to be discouraged at all about walking into a gun shop. I know it's easy for me to say, and you can discount this all you want because I've been doing this for a while. Gun shops are in business. They're businesses, right? They're not your adversary and they're not your best friend. They're a business, right? They don't owe you nothing, but they depend on you. And they depend on all that crap on the shelves. Every single thing on that shelf was sold to the gun shop. They didn't just decide, I've got $1 billion, I'm going to go out and just buy a bunch of stuff for cheap and start selling it. They started a gun shop for whatever reason, and then immediately people started walking in the door to sell them more stuff that they could sell. If you see a decal, more than likely, that's this one guy. If you go to your gun shop and there's a decal in there, I can take a picture. I can show you these pictures. If you see this certain set of decals, which I've seen in countless, this guy goes everywhere, countless gun shops. It's this one guy who's a surfer. He lives in California. He surfs all the time. And then he gets in his vehicle and he takes road trips and he sells decals to gun shops and surf shops and other things. But he just sells decals all year long, or whenever he wants to go on these road trips. He goes back to California, wherever, and he does his surfing. And he's got a bunch of people fulfilling orders for him. He doesn't make the stickers anymore, as far as I know. But anyway, there's literally people doing that, right? To put it in perspective, the stack of Shooter's Almanacs, the 100 of them is $400, so $4 a piece. It costs more than $400 to get a bus, bus stop bench. You know how they'll put the back of the bus stop bench will be like an ad. That costs like more than that in Tucson. So I'm guessing if you're in a town somewhere around the size of Tucson, that's less money than a bus stop bench. It's certainly less money than a radio show ad. So what you're suggesting, if you walk in and say, hey, I know a guy this jerk that's online is always trying to e-bag off of people, and he's a big scam artist, he's trying to suck money off your store, and it's only $400. That's not like saying to a gun shop, think of how many guns they buy for $400. Gun shops deal with $400 like we deal with $4. So, right. I didn't price this at a price point that's going to bankrupt a gun shop. I'm trying to get it to them at a decent price. And if you get 50 of them, it's less, right? $200. So ideally, if a couple of shops got it, then like Clover said, maybe they give them away. Maybe they have them as a impulse buy, but hopefully people pick them up and start going, hey, this is interesting. I need to learn a little bit more about this, or, explore some of those organizations. And so it's all about getting the 2A in their hands. So I guess what I was getting at in the long story here is that if you want to use that as an excuse to get in and talk to a gun shop, maybe the conversation keeps going and maybe you end up walking out of there with some gas money to get to the rally.
I like it. I like what Anthony out there earlier said. He says, ammo and an almanac. I can see that as a purchase. That would be kind of cool, especially if you do 7.62 by 39 ammo, or just 7.62 in general ammo with an almanac that costs $7.62. That could be a really cool package deal right there. So, and you've been working hard on this for a long time and doing all the research and gathering all the data and all that stuff. And, I think that I'm really looking forward to getting my copies and all that, to where just seeing the history. And for some people like me that have many things going against us, one, I don't have the time, nor honestly do I have the patience to gather that much data and do all that. Thank you for taking that time and doing all that hard work, because I think it's going to be awesome. And like you said, you go put it in a gun shop, and every one of our gun shops will have magazines and all of that over there that that you can buy and purchase and all that. And that's there to shill for the next guns coming out and all of that. But having something like this that literally goes through the history of guns and the Second Amendment for less than you can buy with these magazines, I think it's pretty cool. So, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing that. And Clover, I was go back to G real quick. Do you have anything, before we start running out of time here? Do you have anything outside of that you want to plug, or any of your other projects that are going on right now?
No, thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, and no, thanks for. I mean, it's weird that, we're doing this more of like as a professional, thing that you're displaying and you're talking about this thing, and it's weird to have you say thank you for the time. It's like you're one of my good friends, and it's like, yeah, anytime you ever need anything, I mean, I think we all will say that is, I mean, you got the floor anytime you want, man. And so, but like I said, thank you for a lot of us that don't have the time, especially don't have the patience to put something together like this, because, I never would have thought about this because I never would have had the time or the patience to do it. So it wouldn't become something.
It's really not work. It's really not work. It just happens. It's just something, it's a catalyst, and it's an excuse for money, for begging.
Well, yeah. You're trying to rip off everybody and all that. So, but you're doing a hell of a job of it. So thanks for continues to rip us off every month. And thank you for exploiting our sensitivities towards the gun community. So I appreciate you very much. Clover, what about you? Are you doing anything these days? I mean, do you have anything going on? Do you want to talk about anything?
No, not so much. No, I went to, I don't know, sort of a political thing, I guess you could call it today. One of the state reps here talking, gun rights issues. I'm going to try to get working on the audio, but there was some very interesting stuff in that. So, I mean, even if you're not from Texas, I don't know. He had a couple of interesting things to say. I won't give it away too much outside of that. And hopefully in the next few days I can get that up. I am going to be on with John Crump here in a little bit, less than an hour, I guess. So 9 Central, 10 Eastern, 9 Central. If you haven't checked out all the stuff that John's doing over there, come on over. I guess you can search for it on the YouTubes, John Crump. And, join us live.
Yeah, we were me and G and Sarah. It was a Budget and Obnoxious. We were on with John last night talking about the rally, and it's so funny because John is a self-admitted. He has anxiety and all. He likes people, but he doesn't like being around people.
Yeah.
He doesn't like talking in front of crowds, and so now what does he do? He jumps right into going on YouTube and doing these podcasts, and I love that he's doing it a lot better. And like he's going to get better, but it's really fun to see him. And I don't say it's fun to see him struggle, but it's fun to see him combat some of his anxieties, because that's how you get past them all. And so he does a great job. He asks some great questions, and go check out John. It's John Crump's CRUMP. And on YouTube, and are you guys gonna be live at 9 Central? Is what you're doing?
we'll be live at 10 Eastern, 9 Central. Yeah,
perfect. So go check out.
I think I don't quote me on that, but I'm thinking so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, go check it out and go support John and obviously Clover and harass him a little bit. But once again, guys, thanks so much for watching. We're going to continue until November 2nd comes around. We're going to continue to mention the rally and everything that we do in our social media, these chats. It's going to be constant. And I know some of you are going to sit there and say, "Oh, I'm getting so sick of us already." It's what it is. And if you're getting sick of it, I mean, whatever. But there's a couple of people out there saying, can't go and all that. And I understand that there is a chance that I can't go. I've already got my ticket booked, but I have some outside circumstances that I've got to try to get my dad taken care of. But I've already got my ticket booked. But what if I can't go? It's okay. If you can't go, you can still be a valuable asset to this rally. Take flyers to the gun shop. Tell everyone you can about this rally at the range or wherever you are. Hell, go spend $10 or $20 online and design a T-shirt and wear that T-shirt to the range or something. You can get all these one-off T-shirts or whatever, hats or whatever.
Suggesting that someone e-bags off themselves, because T-shirts aren't valid.
That's taking it to the whole new level, G. You haven't reached that yet. You got some time, Grasshopper, before you reach that level.
Once I'm rich enough, I'll focus on e-bagging off of myself, I suppose.
Yeah. So I think that, promote it as much as you can, get out there, share it. Just try to get as many people, because here's the thing. If we can get everyone out there sharing and coming together on this rally, then no matter how many people show up, it's been a success, at least an experimental success, to try to get our community somewhat together. So absolutely get out there. Thanks everyone for watching. If you're watching in replay or listening in podcast form, go ahead and utilize that comment section below. If you've got any questions, please ask them and we'll get those answered in the next one. If you're out there in the live, thank you so much for watching. Joe Smith said, what up? Joe Smith here. Travis T just told me Joe Smith about this. So I love the fact that Joe is very confident that he's speaking in the third person. I love it. Third person is the way to go if you've got the swag to do it. So welcome, Joe. But get out there, support it. Go to Instagram and follow @2A-Rally. Go to the website, secondamendmentrally.com, and put this out there one more time. And in the chat, share this link and everything that you can. Like I said, make your own flyers, get t-shirts made up, whatever it is that you want to promote this. Do what you can. So thank you so much for watching. We shall see you guys next week. We got some really cool guests coming on. As the week goes on, I'll start hinting at a couple of them. We got 3 people that are coming in on the show that you guys are going to know, and could be interesting discussion. So I will see you guys next week for the Armed Citizen podcast. Once again, thank you everyone for watching. We shall see you soon. Semper Fi.